The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing today?
I'm quite well. It is a lovely day. Do you have your coffee?
I do, right here in hand.
Thank goodness.
Need the coffee. Hey, for everybody that's listening in, this is the first episode we're recording after returning from the 2025 Podcast Movement Evolutions Conference in Chicago. We had a lot of fun there.
Oh my gosh, so much fun.
And I was so happy. We made some new friends, other fellow podcasters, independent podcasters getting started. We're going to be posting, it may already be up by the time this video airs, a conference video with a recap of the Chicago trip.
But today, we thought it was quite prudent because in the letters that we have today, we have two. Sweetie talks a lot about her family. And so, Allison, can you just give us a quick recap of the family members?
Oh, for sure. And especially for any newer listeners that might be joining at this point. We're starting letters today, which start the year 1947. So we are starting a new year as well. So talking about the rest of the family with regards to Sweetie, Lou, and Louis, starting on Sweetie's side, Sweetie had 4 siblings in her lifetime. Unfortunately, one of her siblings has passed at this point in the story, and that's her brother, Bob. Now, Bob was married to a woman named Florence. She's going to be referenced in the letters coming up. Florence has 2 children, and that's KM and little R. So if you hear reference to them, that's with Florence. Then she has her elder sister, who she's going to affectionately call Sister. Her real name was Margaret Elizabeth, and she was married to a man named Bill Bolton. And they have, at this point, 3 children. They have M.A., Chris, and little M. But then there's also Frank. Frank is her older brother. Frank's in Chicago, and he's living with his wife, Maida, and they have a little girl named Susie. And then there's also Sweetie's great confidant, her closest sister, which is Jean. And her 2 parents are still alive. They're both in Lacona, Iowa. That's Dr. Chester Demaree, MD, and Laura. So that's Sweetie's side of the family. Now, on the Graham side, Lou had 3 siblings. One of them has already passed away back in the 30s. That's Sammy Jr., and that's Samuel Graham Jr., because Lou's father was named Samuel Graham. Samuel Graham Sr. has also passed away at this point, just noting that about the 2 Sammys on his side of the story. His mother's name was Sydney. Sydney is known as G-Mom Graham a number of times. And then there is his older brother, Joe Graham, who is with a woman named Marguerite. And then there's also Lou's sister, Elizabeth, also known as Dit in the stories. They're all in the Philadelphia area and region, between New York and Philadelphia. At any rate, those are the main characters of the story. Check out our website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com for the full family tree if you want to go through that again. Overall, a lot of family members to keep track of on these 2 sides of the family. We just wanted to review that as we head into 1947, especially in these episodes. In these letters, we're going to hear a lot of these names coming up. So all related family between Sweetie and Lou. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast on YouTube. We really appreciate your support. That's a very easy way to show your support, is just clicking that subscribe button on YouTube. And then for our audio platforms, such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, if you can leave a review if you're listening on that side, we very much appreciate that. Without further ado, I think we can get into
1947. We are there.
January 20th, 1947, Norwood, Pennsylvania. Dear Mama, Daddy, Jean, sisters, and Franks, I am certainly glad to hear that Mama has her teeth. No more happy than she is, I'll bet. But now I find it a little hard to picture you chewing steak and gnawing bones like we used to. I'll bet the back of the chicken is neglected from here on in, and I say goody. You say that the uppers fit nicely. Well, that is at least some assurance that you won't develop an M-Keel grab or have to go on a strictly diet all over again, as you have these past months. Again, I've fallen much behind in letter writing, and now Lou has just gone to work at 6:30, and since this is the time when I can accomplish most, I guess I'd better try to remedy the situation. I've certainly enjoyed all your letters, and Lou says to thank you all for remembering his birthday so well. I'd better start back at the beginning to make the story coherent. I believe I wrote you a day or two before Christmas, so I'll go back to about Christmas to begin. I had to do a lot of hard work to get the house nice and clean and ready to entertain Lou's family for Christmas, and I put it all off until the last minute to get at it, and as a result I was 11th hour cussing at my procrastination. On Christmas Eve, I baked my first cherry pie amid much trembling over its success. I was quite pleased with it. The crust would never have passed Daddy's taster, but the cherries and the thickening were good, if I do say so myself as shouldn't. Of course, Marguerite and Joe came from New York, and they all came down on Christmas Eve, which I thought was very inconsiderate of them, since Lou's mother and Elizabeth knew the tremendous amount of work that I had to do, but then that is typical and very much in character. We decided we'd wait until the very last minute to buy our Christmas tree, for the prices were so out of reason that we thought we'd let the fellows think they were going to get stuck with a lot of trees, which a lot of them do, and then at the last minute pick one up on the cheap. We did, and got a very pretty tree for $1 that was originally priced at $4. Can you imagine that? We set it up, grafted one branch to fill out a bare spot, and I think we had the nicest shaped tree in the neighborhood. Not elaborately trimmed, since the trinkets were selling at 15 cents apiece, and my pocketbook broke the clasp and panted at such prices. We were up until 2 getting the tree trimmed, and the work done that ordinarily could have been done by 10, if they hadn't come down and spoiled our working evening. They were here at 8:15 in the morning to see Louis open his presents and get his first glimpse at the tree. I hustled him from bedroom to bedroom to bathroom and back to keep him from going in to see the tree before Joe got here with his camera. Yes, Joe did take some pictures of him, but with poor lighting, and no doubt he'll be up to high school and before we even see the negatives. Louis was quite surprised to see the people all gathered so early in the morning, and for a little bit he was so interested in greeting them that he missed the tree momentarily, and when he did see it, he didn't see anything, just looked for a little bit, and then he gave what sounded like a little embarrassed giggle and backed off from it. I was quite surprised when he saw the boxes underneath and still made no move towards them, and when he did finally, he went from one thing to another, pausing a little to take one of them to Lou, or bring one of them to me and shove it into our hands, while he went back and got something else. He really had too many things for him to enjoy any one of them really, and so I'll put most of them out of reach for a while, so that he'll get more good out of each one singularly than he will from them all together.
What a lovely Christmas morning.
Yeah.
I love how she said that Joe and Marguerite came in. It was very inconsiderate, because they were working. But yes, yeah, that was funny. And then for him, that was really a first Christmas for him to kind of explore and be aware of things, and to kind of see like how he, as a child, he was just like, this is strange. What's going on? Yeah, trying to take everything in.
Why did how did the outdoors come into the indoors?
Right.
Like his trees belong outside, and somehow one made it in. That kind of.
And it has things underneath it. This is so odd. And he's also the first grandchild, is he not?
Right. On the Graham side, yes.
Yeah. They're out in Philadelphia, and then this is the aunts and uncles. So yeah, so this is very sweet for them. They're all, obviously he got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is what happens when you're the only grandchild.
Right. And there's almost too many things, right? Because he's like saying, oh my God, a box. He puts, right? And then, oh my God, a box. The next thing over and over again. I think many people have experienced this with young children. The distractions are for real. So, on Christmas morning. He did get lots of things, and we do appreciate all that you sent. Maida, your little sweater and a pair of flannelette sleepers are all the clothing he got, and I wonder if I might ask you to exchange the sweater for a larger size. He has 3 sweaters now that he'll wear for quite a while, and if it is possible that you could get a 5 or even a 6, I could save it, and he'd really get more good out of it than he will if I keep this 3. I wonder if it is wise to ask you to make the switch now before little F is born. But it could wait until afterwards, I think. If you think you'd have a great deal of difficulty in exchanging it, just say so. I'll not send it until I hear from you. He got lots of toys. I told you about buying the fleece dog and giving it in Mama's and Daddy's name. Well, that is one of the things that we're especially careful with. It sits on a chair in his bedroom most of the time, and he seems quite content to look at it and go boo-woo at it. But when he asks for it, I give it to him, and he always loves that doggy by cramming it nose first into his neck, and then bends his head down over it and croons, ah, ah. The monkey on the string is one of the favorites too, though he doesn't quite know how to work it by himself. If somebody holds the top string and gives him the bottom, he can make the monkey climb the string all right. The pull toy that Jean sent him seems to be the favorite, since it can be used on the run. It is bright and it makes noise. I'm constantly trying to answer a telephone that doesn't exist when he takes it ringing around the house. He and Johnny fight manfully for the right to push it, and of course Louis always wins. The horse. He is so much bigger than Johnny that when he goes to Johnny and tries to gently pet him by patting him on the head, one tap with those baseball mitt hands and poor little Johnny has to pick himself up off the floor. And really Louis is only trying to be sweet and love Johnny. That is a fact, though I cannot honestly say that Louis's attempts at loving are always honorable. The other day, Dot wanted to go use the telephone, and because it was cold, she brought Johnny over to me to keep while she went to the telephone booth. I stood Johnny down and walked off to do something, and suddenly I heard a series of grunts emitted at regular intervals, and fearing for the safety of my second-hand rug, I went on the run to see what was what, and there was my prize baby Beef astride our little neighbor, who was then flat on his stomach on the floor, bouncing like a ball on Johnny and chuckling heartily all the time. He had the most surprised and bewildered look on his face when I pulled him off the other boy, but I was giggling so that punishment was impossible, and so I stood Johnny up and soothed his ruffled feathers quickly, before Dot came back and witnessed such voluntary manslaughter. Yes, no doubt he'll be that ornery little Chester who dived under the bed for the carefully hidden toys before he had the grace to take off his overcoat. I hope so. He got blocks from Marguerite and Joe, a set of books from Grandma, and a little wagon, and numerous cars and trucks, etc., from Elizabeth. With the books that Grandma Graham, the nice Mother Goose book from Bolton's, and the Barber books, he has practically a library right now. Thanks to all of you for your nice gifts. It made it seem that our family was together, as well as the Grahams. After the presents were open, after the pictures were taken, we had breakfast, and then began the job of preparing the turkey for dinner. Lou's mother did most of the work on it, since I lack experience, and we ate dinner at about 4 o'clock, and then there was the chore of cleaning up. It was a big dinner, and we all ate well. But even so, there was room for the chocolates that Jean sent. Everybody thought they were wonderful candies, to my woe, and the box was nigh unto emptied before the family left. Your gifts were ample, Jean, without the bill, and while I was greatly tempted to send it back to you, I decided I'd better not, and I hope it will land safely in the bank.
The
scene of
little Louis.
Troublemaker.
He's a troublemaker.
Yeah.
As kids are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as little boys have a tendency to be. But she was able to solve the situation, but I just really love her descriptions of his behavior and like the stories, and that Laura and Chester definitely appreciate hearing about that.
Oh yeah, Chester's probably like, oh, he's just being a kid. It's fine.
She made a little Chester.
Yep, she made a little Chester. And then there's also the note though for Dot, which is one of the clues to the time. She's bringing Johnny over to stay with Sweetie while she goes to use the telephone in the telephone booth. Neither of these houses have a phone in the home. So We're so used to our conveniences modern day. It's cold. It's January. Dot needs to make a call. She's going to have to walk to that telephone booth to go make that call. So glad for that to be a thing of the past.
And it's funny because the toy created a ringing sound, and Sweetie would help out her father in his doctor's office and would man the phone.
Yep.
So I can imagine that probably was very trippy for her to hear it and be like,
oh yeah.
Yes, doctor's office, can I help you? Or however she answered the phone, I don't know. But yes, this is a very good point. So she had to go and use the booth, and she didn't want to bring her little boy with her. So she's making friends with the people in the neighborhood, and we're learning a little bit more about Dot and Johnny.
The other big clue here, and this is going to be for some later content, so this is a little bit, I wouldn't call it a spoiler, but it's a tease to what's occurring here, is at the very end, she mentions the chocolate from Jean. Her chocolate is really good. She makes it by hand. So my suspicion is she did not buy this, that Jean made this, because Jean was known for making fudge. And we have a recipe card specifically that's marked VJ, Velma Jean, which is Jean's fudge recipe. So at some point when we start hearing more about her making the fudge, we're going to figure out, we're going to post the recipe online. People will be able to see Jean's recipe. That's why Sweetie doesn't want to part with it, because Jean was exceptionally good at making chocolates. Unfortunately, she had to share it. So to her woe, as she writes. But we had to actually break the video for this letter into 3 parts because it's such a long letter. So we're going to continue here with the story with part 2 of the letter. As you all know, I've already thanked you for the cards. Lou had a birthday 3 days after Christmas, and so I took it upon myself to do a little entertaining. His birthday fell on Saturday, you know. We did finally get in touch with Joe Rusky. He was our best man, you know, and I invited him and his wife to come down from Langhorne for Lou's birthday, and I also asked the Livingstons, also a Navy friend who lives here in this housing project. I had to clean up the Christmas mess, of course, before they came, and I had to bake a birthday cake too. Well, everybody took me up on the invitations and came. It is so far to Langhorne that the Ruskys had to stay overnight and go back on Sunday. Mrs. Rusky is an Ottumwa girl, and she had just come back after a visit home with her mother. Her baby is due in April, and living with Joe's folks. She welcomed a change and enjoyed herself very much while I pried her with every question I could think of. By the way, Mama, the girl in Ottumwa who had the baby that we've discussed did get married to her ex-soldier boyfriend, is living there in Ottumwa. One of the cards that Jean sent on to me was a Christmas greeting from her. Lou enjoyed it too, and so they left Sunday night with many promises of a return, and they invited us up there when their house is finished. Joe is building it himself. And I wasn't going to pause here, but
we have to pause. Yes.
Joe Rusky.
We have to pause because, first of all, like, she's out on the East Coast and they're able to connect with somebody who they knew in Ottumwa. That's awesome. Yeah. And then here too, Mrs. Rusky is kind of living in a similar situation to what Sweetie was just in, because she was with, staying with Sydney, and she was staying with, and was Samuel there when she was staying with him too? Or he passed?
He had passed, I think.
He had passed at that point. So she's actually able to give some reprieve to this woman who is pregnant and living with, her in-laws, and she may be having, and we're not sure, but she may be having the same kind of situation where she's feeling a little bit stifled, maybe a little out of place, staying with somebody, staying with her husband's family. So she was able to give her like a nice night out, and also a nice night for Lou's birthday.
Yeah, because Lou's birthday is December 29th, so follows right after Christmas. But the other thing here, and I think Joe Rusky's wife was named Olive, if I'm correct. That's the girl. Yeah, that's the girl from Ottumwa. But Joe Rusky, and if you go on the website to the wedding photos, you can see the best man there. So you can see a picture of Joe. They mentioned Langhorne here. And just to bring this, because people outside of Pennsylvania might be wondering, like, how far did they travel to get to Sweetie's? Because they're staying overnight. She notes it's too far for them to go back. This is an hour drive away today. This is not an overnight stay these days. Langhorne is in Bucks County. She's in Norwood, which is within an hour drive today. So it's too much for them back then. So if people were wondering, like, what did Langhorne, she doesn't give a state, it gives the idea that maybe they're from like New Jersey, or they're from New York, or Delaware, or Maryland, and they're coming up and they're visiting. No, this is Pennsylvania. It's another Philadelphia suburb. It's close to the city. But today, this would not be an overnight stay. Back then, it's enough where they're like, yeah, we don't want to drive an hour, in the middle of the night to go back to Langhorne.
And two, Sweetie and Lou got a bunch of furniture.
Yep.
And part of the furniture she got was something that was convertible to a bed.
Yeah.
So they did have the accommodations for if people needed to spend the night. They were already prepared for it. So that's good. But yes, it definitely is a sign of the times.
Yep. Yeah. Don't want to drive an hour at night. That's it. Those were the 2 big busts of the month. And since then, we've been doing little but watching for mail and news of you. Your letters are a constant delight, Jean, and we read each one aloud to get the most from it. I've got several letters to go through and look for questions to be answered, so the rest of the letter will probably be disjointed. But perhaps you'll find your individual questions and get some good out of it anyway. Sister, these are your questions. Would like to have heard your kids when they spoke their pieces and sang their songs. Brings back fond memories of when I was a kid. Seems a great many years ago, too. Do you want me to return Aunt Nellie's and Aunt Mary's letters to you? Or have they already been answered? I've been having quite a twinge of conscience at my letter from Aunt Mary that is still unanswered, and I'll try to do it soon. But I thought I had to write to my own folks first. I'm glad that you did like the gifts. That is what makes giving them a pleasure. I've already told you that Joe did take pictures. Everyone seemed excited about seeing Lewis and the Christmas expressions. I do hope we will get some of the pictures soon to send to all of you, so that you may enjoy his Christmas too. I too thought of Bob, and wished with all my heart that I could make Christmas perfect, just by willing him here again. We had our Christmas and the presents on Christmas morning, not Christmas Eve. The gardens at the foot of the tree were meant originally to be the scene of the nativity. Some people still maintain the old plan, and have the manger, etc., lambs and shepherd, in very tiny figures, of course, with green grass and gravel paths, etc. But mostly since electric trains have come into being with such force, the gardens are more of a display of houses and parks, etc., built inside the train tracks. They build platforms about 20 inches off the floor, and about 4 feet by 8 feet in size. They make mountains with tunnels for the train to go through, set out little cardboard houses with paths and shrubs and fences. Some are very nice, and I do wish you could see them, so you'd see just what I mean. Some are very nice and in keeping with the theme of Christmas, and then again some are simply a display, and that is all. Yes, I prefer Christmas on Christmas morning, too. Yeah, and there's a lot of information in here. We're hearing about some other sides of the family, but the biggest takeaway for me here is this is the rise of the tradition of having the toy electric trains running around the trees. For the families that still do this, we had one when I was very little, and somehow it survived all the pets, from being destroyed and things like that. And I love this image. Though for now, she's not saying she has this. She's only comparing to what other people have. So we don't know when Lou and Lewis and Sweetie are going to get a train scene. But they're going with this gardens. That was what was before the trains, was really the nativities at the bottom of the tree.
And also they said that was saved, that tree decorating was saved till Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine like doing all, and then of course you would have to leave it up probably until after New Year's, but this is a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
They build a whole platform and do all these things. Yeah. But that is really neat to see, like, this is kind of where that tradition started. Now, I think that has fallen a little bit to the wayside.
Yeah. It's not as frequent.
It's not as frequent. People will often have villages kind of reminiscent of this, like where they'll have a Christmas village. I keep a Christmas village for my Christmas decorating. So it kind of is along the same vein, but I don't think that we do that too much anymore.
Lewis had no overshoes, and so I couldn't take him and just set him down in it for very long at a time. He was very interested in the white color of it, though he has always liked ice, and like Jean, he'll take a big hunk and hold it till it melts, or else take it out and play with it until his hands are freezing cold. He immediately stooped over and started brushing it with his hands. Didn't mind the cold, but unlike the ice, it melted too quickly before he could get any of it in his mouth. I'd guess that the bottle battle covered approximately 5 days, maybe only 4. He takes a bottle only twice a day, for his nap and to go to bed on. He eats very well in spite of the additional milk, and he certainly is a better child, and I'm confident that I was right in giving it back to him. I was interested to hear that Maida is not going to fight Susie either when it comes time to wean Susie, and I feel that she is entirely right in assuming that Susie would feel deprived when the new baby nurses and she doesn't even have a bottle. Lewis has cut one of his molars, so his eye teeth aren't through yet. Seems he's a little slow on his teeth, but I guess that doesn't matter. I'm not sure about you being slim by September, but if you can, I can. I've put on weight and have a terrible inferiority complex every time I look into my closet. Aside from losing weight, I was too pessimistic to make any resolutions. From what the radio says, You've been having some very cold weather, and I shiver for you. The radio said that it was negative 25 degrees in Ottumwa, and that the zephyr froze up. It has hardly been below freezing, and only a couple mornings has it been 8 or 10 above. However, it has snowed lightly a couple or 3 times, but there is a wind and an iciness in the air that chills me more than if it were really cold. Lou got a little engine warmer for his birthday. The Livingstons brought it to him. It is a little kerosene lamp or lantern that hangs just under the hood and burns all night. The hood must be covered with a blanket or something, of course, but it makes morning starting much easier, and is entirely worth its purchase price of $2.80. Would either Daddy or Bill be interested in same? If so, write, and I'll find out how they are found. They are new, I think, and several people have bought one since they've seen Lou's. I took like the mysteries, and keep my ear glued to the radio, and shoot with the cops and groan with the robbers as they fall in a heap to the sidewalk. Next time they come on, and I'm holding my breath, I'll think of Bill and M.A. holding theirs too. I didn't use the DDT, sister. I bought some roach killer and had pretty fair luck with it, though the time is coming when I'll have to try a second dose of it. And this time I think I'll get the DDT. And then I'll let you know the outcome. Maida, here's yours. We surely enjoyed your picture of Susie in her wartime overalls every time we get a letter. We always look to see if somebody hasn't sent a picture of their pride and joy. Who are we to talk? I know, but we are going to try to get some more and better pictures taken. What a great help it will be when Susie is trained. Dear me, what a job to wash diapers for 2 babies. But with your nice washing machine, maybe it wouldn't be too bad after all. We surely hope you're feeling well, and that the vacation in February will not be so terrible. I've been unable to find you the flannel as I'd hoped. I did make a trip to the mill, hoping to get a mill end for you. But they didn't have any flannel, let alone white, and I've been unable to go back to look again. Yes, Lewis has a temper too, which causes me several undecided moments, whether I should lay into him or pretend I don't notice. One in particular really got my goat. If he had something that he shouldn't have, like a cigarette butt or something like that, and if I took it away from him, he would be very much infuriated and bent over and knocked his head on the floor a couple times and then sat down to cry. That happened only a couple of times until he found that it would hurt a great deal less if he ran in and pounded his head on the sofa cushion. He does that quite regularly, and so far I've just turned my back on him and walked out. However, I have and do spank him for getting mad and suddenly picking up anything within reach and throwing it with force onto the floor.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. That's actually, so this is some, I mean, I'm not advocating spanking, obviously. Yep. But yeah, so she's trying to parent and she's trying to learn how, like, teach him. And it's very frustrating. Yeah. So I can imagine, but she does have sister and Maida and like people who are going through very similar things. Yeah. That she can like have these discussions with and talk with, which is very important. It's very important.
Yeah. And then we get into the heater for the car. Now, yes. I haven't heard about this going on in our day, but somehow the idea of opening the hood, putting a kerosene lamp underneath it, draping a blanket over said hood and lamp with kerosene in it to keep the car warm enough so when you try to start it in the morning it isn't frozen. I get it, but something about kerosene lamp under hood with blanket seems somewhat like a fire hazard, right? Something seems off.
Wait, that's a very valid point. I can imagine that there probably was some occasions in which this was a problem, but I mean, she didn't mention it. And if you're very careful and exercise a little common sense, that is a strange thing to hear about. Yeah. I do know that like currently in environments that are very, very cold, they have things that they plug into their engine to keep it. Like I'm not sure about, I just heard like, so there is, you do have to keep the engine warm. And I can imagine that these older cars probably had that. And other people saw that and was like, brilliant.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that. Hey,
Yeah.
today though, not advocating for DIY or attempting
No.
this at home. Yeah, don't go it doesn't sound like a good idea to go find a kerosene lamp and experiment in the middle of the winter with this. But a very interesting scene from the
Mhm.
times, something we wouldn't see just going by the houses today and be like, "Oh, look, this hood is open and there's a blanket over and a lamp underneath."
The other thing that she talked about was going to the mill to get
Yeah.
mill ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this was something that they did.
Mhm.
They could get fabrics from
Yep.
the mill that when the mill was cutting the fabrics, and then they could use those fabrics.
Yeah.
So,
Who's going to the
again,
mill
these are
today?
all these are ingenious. These are using the resources that they have and, like,
Mhm.
to their greatest extent to get the most out of it. Like, that is
Yep.
probably one of the biggest takeaways I have from this time period, is
Mhm.
that things weren't put to waste and things were
Oh, yeah.
made with quality
Yep.
and with the feeling that those things would be lasting.
Mhm. Yep,
Yeah.
they're washing the diapers too. We don't hear about disposable diapers.
Mhm.
So why is she going to go get the flannel from the mill? First, yeah, the whole idea about the mill and going to the mill is extraordinary in my mind. How many mills exist that you could even go to even, and even if you could, how would this work today? No idea. Things are reusable and things are built to last in this generation. And then going into the third part of our video here for the finale of this particular letter, we'll get that started. Mama, your turn. Thanks so much for the subscriptions to the Saturday Evening Post. I'm looking forward to receiving the first copy. We should have had the first one already, and I hope it will soon come. We were quite surprised, but very pleased. I'm glad that you could spend Christmas with the kids, even if it was at the expense of a baby case. I surely did think of you, and sent my love to all, even though I couldn't be with you. I still plan to be there for your birthday, or shortly afterward, if I can't come then. I'm so pleased that you have your teeth, and I hope you'll be as pleased with them as your letter sounded. Let me know your progress in getting used to them. I hate to think of you fighting all that cold, with freezing pipes and all, and me with just a furnace to fire, and that is hardly any trouble at all. Do take care of yourselves for me, won't you? Jean, you're next. How we do enjoy your letters, and how I do giggle over them. Sometimes, when I'm reading them, I think, if only I had a dishpan full of popcorn, it would be just like a visit. Speaking of popcorn, am I going to have to go uptown and spend 15 cents for 8 ounces of popcorn? Or are you farmers going to send me some of yours? If I have any choice, I like the little rice kind that Sister sent me for my birthday. If I don't have any choice, just send what you got. Not all of it, of course, and be sure to tell me how to take care of it, so that it will pop when I want it to. You write to say that you had the wretched nausea, and instead of feeling sorry for you, I nearly laid down and died myself. The stamps like those you sent him are too recent to be catalogued in this book. We don't know their value, but as far as him enjoying them, he was tremendously pleased, and it was those stamps that has brought to light the urge to build his collection some more. You said you were sending the cards. We received them, and there were 2 addresses that I've been wanting, so I thank you. I think I told you that your letter about the fight at 15th and Forest is one of my treasures. How I did enjoy that. We are genuinely pleased that you like the crown pin. Let me warn you to be wary of those sets. One came out of mine. Yes, Lou got me one just like it, and I couldn't suppress my pleasure that we were once again twins, and you mentioned it too, so I really was pleased. I didn't lose it, though, and so it can be replaced. You'll notice that there is a little loop at the bottom of the pin for a little chain. Well, we are buying them to go on there, and as soon as we get it, it will probably be a month or even 2. We'll send it to you, and you can have it attached. Your details of Christmas were wonderful, and yet I felt greatly cheated that I couldn't be there with you all. I'll never get over wanting to be with the family, I guess. I'd like to see the Disney picture. We took Louis to a movie twice, and while he did behave pretty well, he got restless and wanted to get down and walk off, so I don't think it is advisable to go often with him. I nearly died at your detail of the stocking and the ensuing raise. No doubt you were embarrassed, but what the heck? It did get the job done, didn't it? I can picture you getting both feet in the same spot at the same time, and it gives me another giggle. I'm right proud of you for putting the B on the blokes who have been renting the first aid department, and for free, too. No doubt they realize they have one good nurse, and when you write and say that you have Hazel's job as supervisor, I'm not going to be surprised at all. I'll just say, well, they took their time getting around to it, didn't they? We love to hear about it, so write us all you can whenever you can. I can just see you hovered around those registers when this cold weather hits you, and how often do I wish that your landlord was here to do my firing for me. We do keep it pretty warm, and it isn't such a lot of trouble either. Do write some more. M.A., you're next and last. I should say M.A. and Chris. We did enjoy your letter, and thank you for it. I think that I've already answered most of your questions, and in case I've missed any, it will give me something to write about next time I do write to my family. I'm glad that you liked the presents we sent, and I hope you'll enjoy those bubble baths. No, I do not have any houseplants. Uncle Lou bought me a poinsettia for Christmas, but it has shed all its leaves and petals in spite of the fact that I very carefully watered it and took good care of it. I'm sure your petunias and geranium are very pretty. I've written a long letter now, and Louis doesn't like to have me sit still and type for very long, and since the sun is shining so brightly, I think I should take him for a walk and mail the letters and go to the store. So for now, I'll have to stop, or everybody will have eye strain from reading so much. Love to every one of you, and belated but sincere wishes for a Happy New Year. Love, Sweetie, Lou, and Louis.
Wow. So lovely. Oh, what a lovely letter. And when we go over these letters together and she talks about the letters from Jean, oh, how I wish we had those letters.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like Jean also kind of knew her way around a pen and was able to tell a story.
Yeah. We will eventually have some letters from Jean. The eventually is pretty far off into the futures as we head into the letters from the 60s and the 70s. But clearly Jean was a riot because she can't keep from giggling. She can't keep from laughing. Putting the B on the blokes. So something at work. Jean's finally getting to a higher level. I think we'd heard in a previous episode about how there was another nurse there that Jean wasn't quite getting along with, and now it seems that other nurse's name was Hazel, and they were a supervisor, and it seems like Jean might be surpassing this Hazel individual from the story she must be telling behind the scenes.
It seems like maybe that nurse doesn't know whose daughter she was talking to.
Yeah, so really fun section. And then we get the mention of the furnace, and I think this is another one of those items from the 40s to just talk about real quick, because they're talking about the cold weather. This is all coal heat in these homes. It's going to be mentioned time and time again. When she's talking about the firing and things like that, the register, the cold, this is all of the coal heated homes. So they have to put a certain amount of coal into the furnace to keep the homes heated. My mother's side of the family, they still had, during my lifetime up in the central part of Pennsylvania, the coal truck coming along, because they put the coal down the chute and then you would put some into the furnace. This has largely disappeared, if not entirely, from the suburbs of Philadelphia. But at this time period, everybody's heating their homes with coal in the furnace. So,
and clearly it was an efficient way to do it because it was very easy for her to do, and it kept him warm. And it was necessary, too, because it was very chilly there. Oh, yeah. She does mention the weather a little bit, and it's not as bad as Ottumwa, not as bad as being out there in Iowa.
Nope.
But this was, and also we're in Pennsylvania. Coal was very big out here. So it's a very efficient way, easy way, cheap way to heat a ton of homes. Yep. Speaking, too, of other things that of the time, the Saturday Evening Post. Is this not the quintessential Americana?
Yeah.
This takes me back because my grandmother was very much into Norman Rockwell artwork. I have a piece. It was an old dinner tray of his work. So when I hear the Saturday Evening Post,
it brings back that vision, that scene, right?
Americana. His artwork was so important at that time and was so recognizable because of the Saturday Evening Post. And so Laura getting this subscription for Lou and Sweetie, oh, what a wonderful, and they both clearly appreciated it.
Oh yeah, just entirely. This big letter between the 3 videos. I can't think of a more perfect description of what Christmas was like in 1946.
Yes.
From beginning to end. Everything they did, the setting of the tree, the cost of the trees, what's going on with the weather, what her narrative, it can't be understated. I know everybody appreciates that who's listening to this podcast and has been listening for some time. Sweetie's ability to paint the scene is unlike anything I've ever seen from this time period. And we get to basically fall back into 1946, into 1947. Like, it's now April when we're recording this, and I'm somewhat shivering from the cold she's describing, right? Like, oh my gosh, it's really cold in Iowa, but maybe I should go outside and wear a coat today. No, it's nice outside. I glance out my window and it's not, but she can transport us back, and that's some of the magic. So I hope everybody in our audience is enjoying that. I'm sure that you are. And it's such a delight and privilege to share that with everybody. But then we head into one more letter here. Now, this is the shorter of the two letters. This follows, it's dated actually right before, and this is one of like the detective pieces. The letter that we just listened to was not dated, was in an envelope that is after the date of the one we're about to listen to. But it's very clear that this one's going to follow because one word, popcorn. 37 South Love Lane, Norwood, Pennsylvania, January 19th, 1947. Dear Mama, Daddy, Jean, Sister, et al., and Frank, Maida, and Susie. Here it is, 6 a.m. Sunday. The alarm went off at 5:30. Lou has just gone to work. Young Louis is pounding his ear. And so in the peace and quiet, I'll get a letter or two written, if I hurry, and if I keep this one from becoming a volume in length, as I did with the last one. First, Sister, the popcorn has arrived. I meant to write to all of you much sooner, and so did not use the card, thinking that the letter would be more satisfactory. Seems now I should have used the card. The box was damaged, and I fear that it was leaking a steady leak of popcorn, though there was more than a coffee jar full left. Most of it pops, though it just breaks open instead of popping out into full kernels. Every time I ask Lou, know what I'd like to have? He answers without even looking up from the paper or whatever he'd be doing. Popcorn. I've sure waded into it already. I enjoy it especially on the nights when he has the duty. I pop some and sit by the radio and chaw away, just yearning for Jean to giggle with. I surely do appreciate it. Thanks a lot. We'll be waiting to hear how Chris likes the full day at school and the new experience of the hot lunch. With nobody there to prod him, he'll probably eat better than he does at home. How badly did Bill cut his hand? You gave no detail, but I assume he couldn't play for church, from what you wrote. Mama, we've had no weather worth talking about. Nothing like you've had, I'm sure of that. We heard that the Zephyr froze up at Ottumwa in negative 35-degree weather, and I shivered hard enough for all 400 passengers. We've had no trouble firing the furnace at all. I do most of it, naturally, but aside from getting my hair so filthy dirty from ashes and coal dust, I've no complaint to make. You remember, I said that it reportedly took only 4 tons of coal per winter to heat these houses. I fear that was rather an exaggeration. We may get by on 5 or 6. We have had difficulty in starting the car just once or twice, but once it was warmed up, it was perfectly all right. I told you about the little engine warmer that Lou got for his birthday, and if Daddy is interested in it, I'll find out where they are bought. I know they are made by the Bunsen Company, but other than that, I'd have to find out more detail. You're having a much harder winter than we are. We have rain instead of snow, so you just save your sympathy for yourself. I've thought of you digging snow off the coal and carrying coal into the fire in those buckets. All I do is go down and shovel it in. 7 boxes of candy. Great day. Are you disappointed in your teeth? I was so happy that you had them, and now you don't sound nearly as happy as I felt. Explain, please. Is it in getting used to them, or what? You say you've made a skirt of mine for M.A. Was that a black one? I left a black one there that was too small. If you can find it, she's welcome to it. It is a good skirt and in good condition. I think if you've already used it, that's fine. I'm going to write to Florence this morning, if I can before Louis wakes up, and ask her if she'd like to be included in these carbon copy affairs, and if so, I'll include her in the next one. She hasn't written to me either, but then I haven't given her much encouragement. I will tell Dot that you asked me to thank her for the Christmas greeting, and that is all that will be necessary. You don't want to start a correspondence with her, or she will positively run you ragged. This will be enough. If I ever get my sewing machine, I'm going to make all our Christmas gifts for next year. So if any of you know what you want or would like to have made, speak now. Send proper sizes, etc., 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 or forever hold your peace. We've received the first issues of the Evening Post, and while I haven't had time to read through them yet, I've certainly enjoyed the copies that are already here. Thanks for it, very much. So we get a little follow-up here on some of the items mentioned in the other letter, and that's why we can clearly see the other letter belongs before this one. Again, we get the mention of the Zephyr. It's gotten now -10 extra degrees colder than in the previous letter. It was -25, and the one now it's -35. And I was looking for a newspaper article about this, but have yet to find one, because with 400 passengers stuck on a train in extremely cold weather, yeah, that sounds like something that would hit the news, and she's mentioning it twice. So I was trying to find reference. Maybe I will, but haven't found it yet. We get the mention of the coal. We already talked about that. We get the mention of the popcorn she finally got sent, and we get the scene. And now I'm craving popcorn.
I know, now I want popcorn.
So sounds good. It's like, oh yeah, popcorn. The one thing about popcorn is I don't like how it gets stuck in your teeth sometimes.
Yes, that is a problem.
Yeah.
But she clearly likes it, and I love how Lou knows that without even having to look up from his paper.
Yep.
Yeah, and something that I noticed was they were talking about the car warmer again, and it was made by the Bunsen. And when I hear Bunsen, I think Bunsen burner.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this company clearly knows fire. I guess they know heat. They're good at it, and that they were around still at that time.
Yeah, I was actually looking into that. So Robert Bunsen made the Bunsen burner, and he was a chemist, and it seems that this was created with some lab assistants, saying online, in 1855. So going all the way back to the Bunsen origination. And I had the exact same thought, Jamie. The Bunsen burner. Of course, they're going to be doing this antique for the cars, the car heating. But it would seem, that exact same company. So to this day, we're used to, I think in usually science classes.
Yeah,
right?
in science classes.
Chemistry classes and things. Though I know they're used, of course, little kerosene burners, to keep food warm at events and things. They usually put them under the trays and things. There's that Bunsen burner surviving to this day, all the way back then. So yeah, it's a nice shout out. We get to see a little old history there.
Oh, and then and the sewing machine. We got a little update on the sewing machine. She doesn't have it yet.
Yep. Sewing machine saga continues.
The sewing machine saga continues.
Daddy, we need the medicine badly. Lou has quite a bad cough. I've got that terrible cold in the nose like I had when I was a senior in high school. And Louis has both the nose trouble and a bad cough. I hope you can send it soon. I often think of you making your run to the farm to check up on Calber and do some trimming on trees. You're having a harder winter than we are. We've only had 3 snows so far, and within 2 days after it was completely gone. We do have rain, though, and slog around in quite a messy place. It is hard to take Louis out to walk, because he won't stay on the sidewalks and he has no overshoes. But as far as actual cold is concerning, we have nothing to gripe about. One of our worst days was New Year's Day. I forgot to tell you that we borrowed stadium boots and foul-weather gear from the neighbors and went into the city to watch the celebrated Mummers Parade. Perhaps you've seen pictures of it in the newsreel already. I don't know why I forgot to write about it when I wrote before, but anyway, I borrowed Dottie's first fur coat. Must have been dog fur, for it shed just like Jeff. Her stadium boots, fur mittens, and put a white wool headscarf on. Lou wore Harold's flight boots, his pea coat, and his blue watch cap, pulled down over his ears. We sat in the bleachers until right near the end, when it started to snow and blow, and then we got up and walked a little to keep warm. We wandered over to a corner, it would be on the left-hand side of the street, and found ourselves right in line with the movie camera. That was just at the time that the string bands were strutting past, and perhaps you might find us, for we were there when the winners went by the camera. Just a description of what we wore and where we were is all. But you might look if you have the chance. I haven't seen a newsreel of it, so I don't know, but you look hard. We were making our movie debut. Yak, yak. Okay, and originally I was not going to pause here, but I have to talk about the Mummers because I'm around Philadelphia. Yes. So this is notorious to this day. I think notorious is kind of the right word for it at this point a little bit. It's extremely famous. I just looked up in 2026, it'll be the 126th Mummers Day Parade. This is the Philadelphia New Year's Day tradition. Some of the parts of the parade have clearly dated themselves a little bit too much in recent years, but it features really four main things, which are there's the captains, which are the leaders of various organizations. There's what they call the fancy brigades, and then there's the string bands, and she's mentioning the string bands. The string bands are the most impressive of all, and I have friends that have been in the string bands. Actually, Jen, who narrated Florence's letter in the very beginning of the second season, she was in the string bands with one of the string bands playing saxophone. And I'll go into
I have to ask, because I, as a former cello player, so these people were marching with their string instruments?
Yes, they are.
I can't with the cellos and the basses?
String bass and banjo. They're the primaries going down the street. Yeah.
Wow. How do they do that?
It's interesting to see.
Well, I mean, there's got to, okay, well, I guess I'm coming out for the Mummers Parade.
You're going to have to see it. It is something to see. It's a historical tradition. What was the fourth? Oh, and the comics are the fourth. So it's this idea to dress up in costumes. Think about Mardi Gras. I guess is the best way to explain it. Really like lots of sequins, feathers, bright colors, head to toe, covered massive displays of individuals. Basically, people are walking around with these giant decorations. And that is the outfits, the costumes. You know, they're extremely expensive to make. And they put on these shows, and it's every New Year's Day is the Mummers Parade. But I have to appreciate the string bands the most. So yeah, the primary instruments, string bass, march, and they're wearing all these costumes too. So it's all of this plus sets, plus backdrops, and it's usually like a 4-minute show with like a theme, like, oh, like here's the Halloween theme, and then they just everything's in like neon green, and there's like faces painted all the way up. You can barely, people are basically unrecognizable in these. String bass, banjo, and then all the types of saxophones you can think of. So Jen would be playing baritone saxophone, and she also played alto, depending on what she did. Her husband actually played tenor saxophone. He also was in string bands. It's usually a very family affair kind of thing. So you have alto saxophone, tenor saxophone, baritone saxophone, bass saxophone moving up the street. Usually don't even see those in schools. So if you think about a saxophone that's like 6 feet tall, moving down the street, and they dance around and do all of these set designs and movements to tell a story. There's somewhere around, I think, like 18 string bands. And what's important to note about the string bands of the Mummers are they also are operating all year. A lot of them travel and do shows in Atlantic City and things like that. Whereas the other Mummers portions, I'm not sure they do that, especially the comics. The string bands do. So when she's saying that they were in front strutting past, they call it the strut, right? Which is sort of like that movement where you're just strutting down the street. And she says in her letter here, there was just at that time the string bands were strutting past, and perhaps you might find us, for we were there when the winners went by the camera. So they're performing in front of this sort of big grandstand near City Hall, and there's bleachers usually set up there for the main performance, and those would be televised. And so they're going to play across the airwaves. So she's saying if you saw some of the Mummers that was going out nationally because it was such an event, this is at the level of like the Rose Parade in California or the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York is the Philadelphia Mummers Parade. And it was such a spectacle that they filmed it. So she's hoping that her family can see her as they're all bundled up, sitting there. And mind you, this parade would go on for about 8 to 10 hours. This is a long parade. This isn't just like, oh, march down the street, it's over in 2 hours. No, the road is stopped in Philadelphia for more than half the day. This thing's starting at, I think, somewhere around 10 o'clock in the morning and ending around 6 o'clock in the evening. This is a gigantic parade. Traditions changing. It's been going on for a while. There's a lot of questions, and there's things people can look up more information about the Mummers. But what a scene. What a scene. And it's unique, 100% unique to Philadelphia area.
We got more roaches than ever, Jean. I sure did laugh at some of those pictures. Where were they taken? When I first came across them, I really thought they were little packets of powder to be sprinkled around and didn't open it until I'd read the letter, and then finally I found that it was pictures. In my haste to get them open, I tore a couple of them very slightly, not to spoil your picture, but I did tear them a little, and I laughed a lot. but I've got some taken a long time ago that will be on the same level. The way you go on about my letters makes me feel that being away from home is almost worthwhile. I think of all of you so much, and yet it is a job to write when Lewis tries to play the piano on the typewriter, and I run a risk of waking him up when I wait until he goes to sleep. There is much to do each day to keep the house in the presentable condition. Somehow I feel I'd sure hate to have Jean drop in right now, and then I pretend you might, and get to work on it. You never come. That's the sad part of the whole pretense. Will you get a vacation this year to come and see us? Lou was asking the other night if I didn't think you'd come. From the looks of our expense items and our income, I may have to go back on my promise to come as Mama's birthday present and come later on, as I did this year. Lou says that he'd surely appreciate it if you'd go and buy him 4 of the Centennial half-dollar stamps. The money down at Zazer's has run out, and we're not getting any first-day covers anymore, and as a result, we missed the Santa Fe issue entirely. We've tried everywhere to get them, but they just don't have any. I wish you'd try to get some for us. You may not have any luck at all at the post offices, so ask Zazer's. I want very much to have a full sheet of them, and also a plate block, if that's possible for the collection. You know, that is to be Lewis's when he gets bigger, and I'm very sorry that we slipped up there. Since we've tried here, and failed, we really tried too, I hope you can help us out. I guess I'll have to start thumping the adipose too, with a vengeance. It's a good thing no one of my own family can see me now. Tisk tisk. Guess you'll have to make your own decisions about those bus drivers, whatever you do. Be wary, sis, be wary. Give me more details about Marion's coming marriage. To whom? When? Where did she meet him? Etc., etc. Congratulations, Frank, on the raise. I'm glad that you got it, but I'm also glad that I don't have to pay your income tax. The time is coming when little will be here, and you know how very anxious we'll be to hear all about it. I hope you're feeling well, Maida. I know you'll be glad to have it over and done with and slip back into those size 14s. I wonder if the woman is alive who had a baby and then just put back on her clothes.
Yeah, and I wanted to pause here real quick because just to go over the point again that Maida is pregnant now with her second child. Frank is Sweetie's brother. Frank's working for the Bell Telephone Company, so that's where he's getting the raise. He's doing pretty well at work. And then the income tax, Jamie, I just last night filed my taxes for 2024.
It is that time of year.
And we're good libertarians, so we have something to say about that. Taxation is theft.
Thank you. Make sure we remind everybody.
Yeah.
But you see here and through these letters that her relationship with Maida has definitely developed. And it's really cool to see like how that she's talking with Maida more, and and that we're all anticipating the new little one coming. Throughout this letter, throughout like what she's been writing, you can really get an idea of where she is in her life. Yeah, and she feels. I know she likes to. She feels a little sad that she isn't writing as much. Right, but she has a young child. And I think that one thing I would like for people to take away from this is that when you're a new mother and you have a child, especially when they're, smaller, you really, you have to slow down. You have to slow down. There is other things that require your attention. And this is one of the things that definitely requires you. It's one of the most important things. Yeah. So I do feel bad for her. I wish I could talk to her today and say, it's okay at this season in your life that you're busy trying to keep the house so that when your husband comes home, he comes home to a nice clean house. And also she obviously wants to be in a nice clean house as well. She has to teach little Lewis how to be, and she has to keep after him. And like when they're that age, I'm sure that going down to the store was a lot easier when you didn't have a little one. You got to slow down. Right. So if anything, this is one of those something that is perpetual with the human condition. This spans decades, centuries. When you have a little one, that becomes your primary focus. Yeah. And then it's obvious that that's what she understands that and she knows that. So, sweetie, you're doing a wonderful job.
Lewis is talking more. He says, okay, Oh boy, picks up anything and holds it to his ear like a French telephone and says, "Hello," and then slams the receiver. He chews gum like Glenn is somebody in Dysart, and when the sweet flavor is all gone, promptly spits it out whenever and wherever he chooses. I fished everything out of the toilet, from sofa pillows right on down the line to include everything that would pass through. A great incentive to keep the thing clean, believe me. He still has a rash quite bad. I've used cornstarch exclusively. He grabs any powder puff and powders the lower half of his body with several hard whacks, brushes his teeth with toothbrush, and swishes make-believe water in his mouth. He plays quite well alone, though he'll sit and laugh aloud at neighbor kids roughhousing and stands on the sofa at the window and watches for a long time. He yells at them and pounds on the window. He does love to roughhouse, too. Must stop now. I love every one of you.
Amazing start to 1947 to get all this detail coming in. Just incredible.
And she started off the year on such a poor note. The first half of the year was such a bad, just not a good situation. So now that she's home, or so she's at a place that she feels is her own, she's experiencing these new things with her husband, with her son, and basically just kind of getting into life.
Yeah.
It's neat. It's good to see.
It is really good to see. So nice recap of December 1946. We're now at the end of January 1947. We've got quite a journey to go on for 1947, so we hope that you join us next week as we continue with Sweetie's story and we head into the spring of 1947. With that, thank you everyone and see you next week.